Please listen carefully.
Hello and welcome to the Film Revere Podcast, episode number 20. This week brought to you by Audible. I'm your host, Zach Hamilton. My guest for this episode is actor and director Michael A. MacRae. But first, a quick Film Revered update. As you may have seen on social media, you can now purchase Film Revered merchandise. The first items to hit the store are 2 t-shirts, the FR Podcast tee, as well as the company tee. If you would like to purchase a shirt, please go to filmrevered.com/shirts. Once again, that's filmrevered.com/shirts, or see the link dump for a direct link. Coming up next, I have an interview with actor and director Michael A. MacRae. Michael has co-starred in Veep and Tim and Eric's Bedtime Stories. More recently, Mike is promoting his feature film Fishbowl California, in which he co-wrote and directed. So please stay tuned as we will now be taking a quick commercial break. Alright guys and gals, are you like me and want something more than music to listen to during your morning commute? Maybe you want to start reading more, but don't have the time to sit down and open a book. Well, for people on the go, there's Audible. Audible offers over 180,000 audiobooks to listen to on your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, Audible is giving Film Revere podcast listeners a slammin' deal. Go to audibletrial.com/frpodcast for a free 30-day trial, and more importantly, get a free audiobook. Once again, go to audibletrial.com/frpodcast. That's audibletrial.com/frpodcast. Thanks again to Audible for their support, and thank you, listeners. Now, back to the show. Well, thanks for joining me on the podcast today, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
So on the show today, we're going to be discussing your career both as an actor and as a director, as well as your upcoming film, Fishbowl California, which just recently released. That being said, I'd love to start our talk by asking, where are you from, Michael? Like, where'd you grow up?
Honestly, I don't even know where I'm from. No, I'm kidding. I'm from a suburb called Glendale Heights in the suburbs of Chicago. And,
right.
People who don't know Glendale Heights, people know, like, where are you from? I just say Chicago because, and then when someone's like, oh, me too, then you're like, no, I'm actually from Glendale Heights. I'm not a city boy. I'm very suburban. I just say Chicago for, like, the mass population.
Oh, yeah. No, I get that, too. I mean, I'm from Michigan originally, and I always end up saying Detroit, but realistically, I'm from, like, Paw Paw, Michigan, which sounds so incredibly hillbilly. It literally was a population like 3,500 people. The closest town to that was Kalamazoo, and then you go to Detroit, because people don't really, they just think I'm making names up at that point. So
the town's so small, it's like everyone's probably dated one another at one point.
Oh, it's bad. Yeah.
Everyone's hooked up with one another. Everyone knows everyone.
And it's worse when they have like a really bad slogan. Like Pawpaw was the town so nice, it named itself twice. And that's, I wish was a joke. It's really not. So
that's funny.
So what did you go to school for?
I went to school originally for, let's rewind. So like when I was in 7th grade, I wanted to be an airline pilot. So I did like a report on being an airline, like you had to do like a career report.
Yeah.
And, I was really bad at math growing up. In fact, I had multiple sessions of summer school. I was so bad at math. And then my family convinced me, like, no, you can't fly a plane because you're really bad at math. How are you going to land a plane full of people and not know how to do math? I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So then, radio on air broadcasting piqued my interest, and interned at a radio station in Chicago. Went to school for radio broadcasting, right out of high school, and thought that's what I wanted to do. Moved to LA and worked at a station here. Worked at the same station, Seacrest is on air at, and it was cool. It was a great experience, but then it was something I really didn't want to do. I started doing like extra work in Chicago on TV shows and stuff, and I realized, being in entertainment is what I wanted to do, and kind of fell into, started off as an actor, after radio, and then kind of, segued into filmmaking. But yeah, I didn't go to school for filmmaking originally. You know, radio and TV was my first school venture.
Definitely. So I guess my next question would be then, did you end up going to some kind of school or taking like online, lessons or tutorial, like just wait, like how did you end up, figuring out how to make a film? I mean, again, you're here to talk about Fishbowl California, which you wrote and directed. So I'm just curious, like how did you get back into filmmaking?
I don't think anyone really knows how to make a film. It's kind of, I say that in like a weird sense. No class or no school can really prepare you for what a film does to you and what a film, requires of you. So I kind of started off, like I wrote this pilot back in 2014, 2015, and had it produced. It was my first like officially written thing that I had produced. I didn't direct it, but I wanted to direct it at the time, but I wasn't, I was a young kid. I didn't, know anything about directing. And so,
yeah.
Then I moved on to I did a short film, and I wrote this short film. It was like 10 minutes long, and directed it. And when I directed that, and I was in that whole editing process, with our editor, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to direct. This is all I want to do.
Awesome.
So to prepare, so the next thing was, okay, did a short, wrote a pilot. Let's do a movie. Like, let's do a feature movie. Feature film, and so I think the Christmas before we started shooting Fishbowl, family asked, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I was like, "Books on directing. I don't know how to direct. Let's read books on directing and self-teach." Because I did know shit about directing. I still don't know anything about directing. You just pick it up as you go. In my experience, I mean, maybe Steven Spielberg will tell me I'm a lunatic, but I think you just kind of, if you have a vision, if you see something in your head, you pick up everything along the way. If you have a good cinematographer, like you're gonna learn things along the way. I mean, it's something that no school can teach you. Something you just have to do. Eventually, you'll get better and better and better.
Yeah, like a trial by fire, if you will.
Exactly.
So, well, and speaking about Christmas and the holidays, it definitely is something I was kind of curious about with family. How has your family been as far as being supportive or more, not supportive with your career choices, first as an actor and then now as a director?
So, I'd always I call home probably about 3 times a week, and it is still to this day. But like my first few years out here were a big struggle, and as it is for anybody.
Yeah.
And it was like to the point where my family kept telling me, all right, you need to find a regular job. You need to stop, this is maybe not going to work out for you. And then like, just as, I was about to, throw in the towel, I guess I consider throwing in the towel all the time. One of the times I considered, tossing the towel, something, I booked my first co-star, which was incredible. And then my family was like, "Oh, maybe you do have something here." And then, another couple years go by, I've got more roles. And then, book something else. And they're like, "Okay, maybe you do have something here." And then I think that my family's been supportive of me as an individual, in anything I choose to do, which is great. Obviously, anything legal. I can't go deal drugs, and they're supportive of that anyway.
Like my son's a doctor. Well, mine's a drug dealer.
It's a very solid backup choice. I mean, tax-free money, you're making thousands. Like, that's not a bad idea. No, my family has been and always will be, supportive of anything I do. But when my family saw Fishbowl California, I think is when and this is I made that in the last year. So I'm coming up on 8 years in LA. I think that's when it finally clicked that, okay, I have something here. I'm think I'm in it for the long haul now.
Oh yeah, and again, it seems kind of silly in a way about the billboards, which we talked about before the show started. But at the same time, it's like that is kind of like some serious validation for not only your work, but also like your career choice. It's like if you're driving down the road, you will see in, I'm assuming Los Angeles is where those billboards are. If you're driving down the road, you'll see a billboard for Fishbowl California. I mean, that's got to be, again, you talk about how your family's like, whoa, okay, like clearly, after seeing the film, then also seeing the press and everything, that has to definitely help make them more supportive, I think. Not that they weren't along the way, but.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You suddenly hear of more support from people you didn't really talk to as much during your harder days in LA.
Yeah.
Suddenly see the billboard, like, oh my goodness, that's, congrats, been rooting for you. I'm like, have you? No, it's honestly quite flattering. But yeah, driving by the billboard, like I try to, we have a really big one at on a, major street in Hollywood. And, I drive by it once in a while, during my commutes, and it's just cool. Like it still doesn't. It's not sinking in yet that that's my movie. That's my billboard for my movie. My name's on it, writer director. Like it's so surreal. And I actually did another podcast interview last week, and I parked right outside a meter, like outside, staring at the billboard while I'm doing this interview. And it really, I don't know, it kept me grounded in a way where it was like, I started here, but now I'm here, but I don't want to be here for long. I want to be there. Like it's really, it's cool. I mean, anyone can get a billboard. It's really not. It's like not like an exclusive thing for any one type of person. But it's just it's cool. I mean, it was a humbling experience to see that go up, and for people to call and text saying, "Oh my God, we passed it." It's cool. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the thing with the film industry. It doesn't matter really how you get into it, whether it's as an actor, I think especially, or even as a director, there's definitely a stigma of like, look, you can try it, but realistically, you're not going to succeed. But that goes with anything. I mean, when I had told my parents, I'm like, look, I want to get in the film industry. I went to film school at Arizona State, dropped out, went to a visual effects school. I'm like, this seems more reasonable. But even then, that's like a hard gambit to get into. And again, people were supportive, but they were still like, if this doesn't work out though, like, at least you have an associate's degree or something, like at least you can fall back on that. Like there was always like that, at least you can. And it wasn't until I got my first job in Canada, of all places I had to move there, that people were like, oh my gosh, like my kid worked on Justice League. Like, okay, this is like a real deal now. So it is kind of interesting how that works, is like they're supportive, but they're always pushing the backup plan. And then once you've actually made it, then they're like, oh, whoa, this is crazy. So,
right. I mean, I was always told, during my time here in LA, that if you have a backup plan, then your main plan isn't going to pan out, because you're going to subconsciously think you have this safety net, and then you're not going to give it, you're not going to give, your 110% towards your main plan. So, I mean, do I have a backup plan? I'm sure I can find one, but I keep telling myself, no, this is what I have to do. This is the only thing I'm doing. So,
and speaking of your career overall, you've, since your start, you've been involved in 21 projects as an actor, 5 as a director, at least according to your IMDb. I'm sure there's some stuff that may not be on there. That being said, what was your first paid gig in the industry?
I don't know, because a lot of like those little indie films that aren't paid, because you do it for experience. I guess my first notable co-star was like the best one that I've booked on that resume is Veep on HBO. That was cool. But I think that's my first legit co-star, where it was like, all right, this is the real deal, SAG contracts and all that fun jazz. But my first thing when I moved out here that I got paid to do was this TV show called America's Court, which is a court reenactment show. So like all those court shows are fake.
Yeah.
Or they're real, and then they pay you the settlement. Like the show.
Oh, dude, it's so shady. Yes.
And so I did this show called America's Court, where my air quote, former friend was suing me because I spilled beer on his Xbox inside the machine. You couldn't make this up if you try. This is an actual case that happened at some courthouse in some city. And so this show, America's Court, it's a real judge and everything. But like we had to go in and audition for this process, and it was like an improv thing. And there's like 300 people that come, and they kind of pair you up by looks and to see like what makes sense, based on the scenario. And they're like, all right, 60 seconds, talk about this. And, if we ask you this, in this court case, what's your response to the plaintiff or the judge? And we had to do it. And actually met one of my best friends to this day, because he was the one that was suing me in the show. So he was like one of my.
I love that dynamic.
Yeah, it's weird, and it's so weird because the producers feed you these like they don't give you they don't script you, but they kind of feed you all right, so we're in the green room, we're getting ready to go, and they're like, Michael, go ahead and don't get kicked out of the courtroom. Like be on the edge of getting kicked out. I was like, does the judge know about this? He's like, don't worry about it. Just go with it. Get him to say he's about to kick you out. We want a little bit of drama. So I had to mouth off the judge. It was so funny. I actually still have the little DVD at home. I got to watch it. I haven't seen it in years. But
This adds a whole new light to morning courtroom shows.
The bailiff almost pushed me in the court. It was great. But it was all predetermined. It was all, they all knew what's going on.
Yeah. Wow. So getting back to another kind of political aspect would be your co-star on Veep. How was that? You had mentioned that was one of your first big roles, but also one that you enjoyed the most. I mean, what was it like working on that show?
One line. It didn't make it in the final cut. It was a 3.5-minute scene that got ultimately cut down to 45 seconds. It was a very quick, cut. It was weird how I got that. And I have to give credit where credit's due. I was booked to do background work. It was a SAG background gig, 300 people, and I got, I was really hesitant going in, but the casting director that booked me on this, used me for a lot of different projects. Starting out in LA, and so. I did it, and I showed up, and I go to sign in, and they're like, "Oh, hang out for 1 minute. The first AD wants to talk to you." I was like, "Oh, Jesus, what did I do? I just got here. Am I in trouble?" Anyways, so then the first AD comes over. His name's Dale Stern. He's actually he's a director as well on the show, but he's first ADing, and he goes, all right, so there's a scene going on with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and this, troubled mother at this college campus, and you're going to be this guy in the crowd who just yells at her for, taking too much of the Veep's time. And the line's this. I'm like, oh, you mean because your background, you're not supposed to talk, right? So I'm like, oh, like hand motions or something, right? He's like, no, this is the line. I'm like, what? Okay. So I did the line a couple times, okay, hang out. And so I was hanging out for 5 hours, and I had no idea what was happening. I had no idea. Was I getting a line? I had no idea. I just showed up. So I had to audition for it on set. So it came down between me and another guy, and they're rehearsing this scene. Julia, Matt Walsh, Tony, everybody from the show. They're rehearsing the scene, and I had no idea what was happening. And then they call me over. All right, you got the part. We're gonna have you do it. And so I had no idea about the rehearsal. They're rolling cameras on the first take, and I'm standing there waiting to hear. I couldn't hear what the line, what was happening, and so everyone stops talking during the scene. They all look at me, and Julia coughs, and I was like, "Oh, that's my line." But I wasn't in the rehearsal, so I didn't know that they cut 2 pages of dialogue or a half a page, whatever it ended up being. So it was really funny to be called out by Elaine. It was a cool experience. Of anybody, I think that was really, really funny. It was so worth it. But finally, we did the scene, we did it right, and afterwards she came up to me and was like, "Hey, you did a great job, man." I was like, "Is this real life right now? This is Julia Louis-Dreyfus telling me I did pretty good." So.
Right, definitely. Now, according to your resume, in 2013, you would go on to begin your directing career. What made you decide to get into directing?
I'm able to distinguish what good acting and bad acting is, in my opinion. But I was never that strong of an actor, So I like organizing things and being behind the camera and, in a sense, calling the shots and being the deciding factor, what a viewer is going to see visually, and I like getting the performances out of actors, and so when I realized, acting wasn't really something that, was my strongest suit, I, went into writing and directing, more so directing, but, I typically write and direct my own things.
Okay. What would you say is a director that has had the most influence on you when it comes to your work?
Judd Apatow. 40-Year-Old Virgin is probably, one of my all-time favorites. And that was basically, I think it was that before The Office for Steve Carell? I think it was right before The Office, or right during the first few seasons of The Office.
Yeah.
So that was before Steve Carell was really Steve Carell. So, I mean, watching that and other movies and stuff he's produced, I love Bridesmaids. I mean, the comedy is hilarious. But Judd Apatow is probably one of the top 3 filmmakers, being the reason why I chose comedy and wanted to do comedy.
Definitely. I have a question for you as well. What would you say you enjoy most about being involved in this industry, the film and television industry?
Oh, I mean, the hours suck. No,
they do. It's okay.
they do. No, we work in this business where we can have fun. We're not cutting people open for a living. We're not drilling teeth for a living. We're not saving lives. Like, we're making art. We're, finding, we're taking a story. We're making it into a film or a show, and we're having a good time while we're doing it, and we're fed like every 3 hours. So I always have to say, on sets I worked on, like, why is everyone complaining? We're fed every 3 hours. We're not doing anything that's, yes, our line of work is hard in its own, it has its own reasons why it's hard, but, we live a pretty cushy life doing what we do. I mean, this is a business that everyone would love to be a part of, and, but I love it because it's just, you never know what could happen, right? Like,
that is true.
It's like mystical. It's weird.
Definitely. Before we get to your film, Fishbowl California, I'd like to do a rapid fire round, if you will.
So I don't know how rapid I would be today, but we can try it.
we'll do them quickly, but we'll figure it out as we go here. So I would love to know, what are your top 3 favorite films?
The 4-Year-Old Virgin. Just more recent movie, Sully by Clint Eastwood. Phenomenal movie, if you haven't seen that. And third one, I'd have to go with, the first Hangover. The other ones weren't as good, but the first Hangover, yeah.
That is awesome. I love how you threw a drama in there. Little fact-based drama.
Sully? I think that's like one of the most phenomenal, like, real story.
Oh yeah.
Real story, to the screen movies about a heroic, event that day. I mean, that was so well done, in my opinion.
Definitely. What's the last TV show you watched?
The Office.
What was the last movie you saw in theaters?
Rampage.
Rampage, really?
Yeah.
And what were your thoughts on that? Quick review.
Basically Jurassic Park, but with an ape. But I think I stole that from somebody.
Either way, definitely probably sums that movie up. And with a flying wolf, I think, and a crocodile, I think, as well. A lot of fun stuff.
I might have dozed off in the middle of it. I have no idea. My friend said I fell asleep, but I woke up at the credits. So did I see it? Probably.
Lastly, name an up-and-coming actor or actress that the audience should be looking out for.
Steve Olsen and Catherine Cortez.
Love it.
Not to be biased.
And, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, the audience definitely knows Steve Olsen. We had him on the show a couple weeks ago. So I think that's definitely a good pick. I mean, he's such a funny guy. I feel like he's on the cusp. Like, this movie, I think for both of you, could really catapult careers here. You as a director and him as an actor, as well as Catherine Cortez. It's
unreal. Like, you never know what could happen from this. We're just taking it one day at a time. But I told Steve, Steve, you need to be on a series. You need to be a series regular on a show, or Catherine needs to be acting full time.
Definitely.
They're both. I mean, Catherine's performance is phenomenal. I can't sing her praises enough. She is just one amazing. Just captures the emotion and displays it on screen so well. And Steve's comedy is so funny. He does a million commercials that are all comedic-based commercials. This guy is hilarious. And we found Rodney and Steve, and it just was kind of serendipitous in a way.
Well, and that's what I'd like to do is just move on to your recently released feature film, Fishbowl California, which we're talking about now, which is also available on iTunes, Amazon, and other video on demand services. The film tells the story of a man struggling to find purpose in life who is then enlightened by a drunk, ailing widow. Now, not only are you the director of Fishbowl California, but as you pointed out earlier, that you like to write and direct more often than not. And in this case, you did write the script. What inspired the story behind Fishbowl California?
Well, I'm was one of three writers on this film. As far as inspiration, we wanted a comedy. Wyatt Alidor and I, he's my co-writer. We sat down. We wanted to do like a buddy comedy, just something funny, a movie like 90 minutes full of jokes. And we had a pretty funny script. We thought it was funny, it was raunchy, it was like American Pie-esque. And we wanted a movie that had heart, but because comedies typically don't do well at film festivals, and overseas, comedy doesn't translate. So you needed, that family heartstring. You needed, you just needed a little bit of dramatic elements. And so we brought in a third writer, Jordan Hodges, who brought a little bit of the heart and, scaled the comedy back to still be really funny, but also at the same time be serious. Have a moment where you could change a laugh into a tear rather quickly because you don't have a lot of time to do it. The movie's only 83 minutes, but then to also end the movie on a laugh, like that's pretty hard to do. But there was no direct inspiration from this. We just kind of. I think we started off writing a few pages of, character one, character two, and then we're like, let's just give these people names and kind of, all right, what's the purpose? Who does he meet? What's the stories? We just kind of came up with A, B, and C plot, and it just kind of, morphed into Fishbowl California, and I was inspired personally by St. Vincent, by Ted Melfi. Theodore Melfi. Okay. He directed Hidden Figures. And I guess, we can add him to the list of filmmakers that inspired me as well. Theodore Melfi. St. Vincent is with Bill Murray and Melissa McCarthy. And this, I think Jacob Tremblay, was his name. I could be wrong on that actor. But it was a phenomenal movie about this older, younger dynamic. And you don't see that a lot, and we wanted to do this older, younger Harold and Maude, no romance, but still have this bonding moment, because it's sweet to kind of see, someone connect with somebody on like a 30 to 40 year age gap. It's quite nice to see on screen, and so I think that was my inspiration for that, and we just kind of, stuck with that, and just we all gave it our little bit of inspiration, when we all wrote this together.
Something else that definitely stands out immediately, I would say, is a terrific cast for this film. What was it like? What was the casting process like for you and the team?
Steve was the only audition for the movie. He was the only actor that actually auditioned for the movie. Everything else is referral based or straight offers. Kate Flannery is so seasoned from, she played Meredith in The Office. You don't ask Kate Flannery to audition. You just know she's going to bring her A game. Katrina Bowden, you're not going to ask her to audition. It's just it's a straight offer. So Steve was the one person we put through the ringer through 3 auditions, and boy, I'm glad we did. And Steve has been so invested in the project since, and so he kind of helped me with the casting process. It started off with referrals. Jenna Willis, who plays Olivia, is friends with Quentin Aaron and Katrina Bowden. So we got those two folks on a referral. And, then since we had a little bit of credibility behind us now, Steve and I wanted to take it a little bit further. Like, okay, who else can we get? And he's like, well, I'm friends with Richard Reilly, the Jump to Conclusions guy from Office Space. And, we got him interested. And then we're like, okay, how much further can we go? And so we were having fun, emailing and texting and calling back and forth about people who we think might be good for these parts. And, that's how we got Tim Bagley and Max Adler, and everybody else in the movie. Just kind of fell in through, people that I knew or someone knew in the movie that we trusted that could bring a good comedic element to the movie, and it was a fun process. I think it took about 3 weeks or so to kind of fully lock in the whole cast, but it was as much as it was tough, it was also very rewarding at the same time.
Definitely. It's something I'm actually kind of curious about. Circling back to Steve, again, as we mentioned, we had him on the show, and it's funny because you mentioned that he's the only one that had to audition, and he auditioned 3 times. And something that I'm curious about, because he had mentioned this in his interview with me, that the first interview he did, he went completely off book and was not sure if that was a good thing or not, because the next scene that he got was more of a dramatic scene and was told to stay on script. I'm just curious what your mindset was when that first audition happened, when he did go off book in the comedic scene.
I heard his answer, and he's not wrong at all about it. Most directors and filmmakers would have passed on him, even though he wasn't off book and didn't say all the right lines. It was still very believable. I still felt like I was watching the scene that we later shot in the movie, even though the lines weren't right.
Okay.
And it was funny, and I laughed the entire time. And I just kind of forgot about the fact that he got the lines wrong. And I said, you know what, he's worth seeing another tape from. So we did a second tape, a dramatic tape, and he nailed it. And I said, okay, well, we've got our June, we've got Catherine. Now, the true key is, are they going to have chemistry? That was the biggest thing. And at first, a lot of, my manager and, a few people told me they weren't quite convinced that this was going to be the right casting decision, but it ended up being the best casting decision in Steve. And I can't see it. I can't see the movie any other way. And and he really morphed into this, and it shows. And I think it's going to do very well for him in his career.
Definitely. Was there an actor or actress that you were surprised that you landed?
Yeah, Tim Bagley. So Tim Bagley and Kate Flannery. So I knew Tim Bagley growing up from watching King of Queens. He played Glenn the neighbor. Kevin James, yeah. I would watch that on a little TV that I had to turn, the knob to go to the next channel. It had rabbit antennas. It was staticky, but every night I'd watch The King of Queens, and I eventually got all, 7, 8 seasons on DVD. And he wasn't in the show that much, but when he was really funny. Like, he played a really nosy neighbor. Maybe he's really good at that. And so he had the same agent as Richard Reilly. So, when we were doing the offer for Richard, I said, well, hey, I've got this role. And it wasn't written yet when I was interested in Tim Bagley. It wasn't written yet. And I said, hey, I've got this role for Tim Bagley. I don't know what it is yet, but I can get you 3 pages or 4 pages in a day. Would he be interested? We've got, these are the people we have in the film so far. The agent said, yeah, send it over, and, we'll look at it. I didn't know what I was writing.
I just need to impress him.
The agent writes back, oh, Tim Bagley, we're good to close on Tim Bagley, or he accepts the offer. But I'm thinking, oh, you mean Richard Reilly, right? Because we just sent this over. But no, we haven't heard from Richard, but Tim Bagley's in. He would love to do it. I was like, it was amazing. And the same thing with Kate. It was a little touch and go. We hadn't heard back, and we were getting close to shooting, and then that email came through. Hey, deal's closed. You're good to go. Here's your contact info. Get the ball rolling. And it was great. They were both so great to work. Everybody was so great to work with. But Tim especially, because he's in so many projects, and he's in so many projects because he is so good. The night before shooting, we were at 11 o'clock at night. We were on the phone for 45 minutes. He was just saying, well, what if I did this? How do you feel about this? Because I think, Woody would be saying this to June, but he'd be feeling that. That's how you're working with somebody so prepared and so professional. They invest the time on this low budget movie. That's how they care.
Yeah.
And he's today. I consider him a good friend, and he's a good human. And it was just it was an unreal experience. And on set, like there's a still photo of me laughing on set, like kind of like my head in the air, like giving that okay face, like that's a good note. Him giving me a comedy note, and I was like, is this really happening right now? This is the coolest thing ever.
Well, I love the full circle of that too, as like, you know, you were first exposed to Tim Bagley as a nosy neighbor, and then ultimately now you're directing this feature film with him starring in it as a neighbor. I just think that's kind of hysterical. And again, also busting you up probably as he did in King of Queens.
He brought the Afghanistan line in the movie. He's all looks so dry. It looks like Afghanistan. That wasn't scripted. I'm giving him the credit for that. That was all him. And then they improv some jokes about Trump and how the bushes were so tall. It was like she was building a border around her house between her and Mexico.
Oh my God.
We couldn't go with that. I wanted to play it safer and not be so. I didn't want to play into the politics because again, it's half of the people will think it's funny and half of the people won't think it's funny. But
definitely.
I'll relate that a dry garden and dry plants, that haven't been watered in months, or California's got this drought. Looks like the deserts of Afghanistan. So he brought. I mean, that line was arguably probably one of the funniest in the entire movie.
Well, the delivery of it alone, I mean, especially in the trailer, which, we'll link as always in the link dump. But like, again, the music cuts right there, but it's like, it's such a good line because it comes out of nowhere and you're not expecting it. And like, you can't help but laugh out loud to that. It's hysterical.
Yeah. I mean, every time, I love when we play it in a theater, or we played it in a few theaters. That gets the biggest roars. I mean, it's just so funny. It just hits on it. It hits on a good beat. And the trailer, music drops in trailers really help. Because as Americans, we have to be spoon-fed comedy sometimes. So in trailers, when we drop the music, this is going to be a funny line coming up right now.
Yeah, pay attention.
Yeah, but I'm glad that we've transitioned out of laugh tracks on TV shows. We can kind of think for ourselves, for once. But it's amazing how funny that one line is. I mean, it's incredible.
Oh yeah. What was it like working with the rest of the cast of the film?
I felt like a kid in an amusement park, like getting to experience all these different cool things, and everybody was phenomenal. I mean, the crew was phenomenal as well. I don't want to forget the crew. They made this possible on this budget, and I couldn't have asked for anything more from. And then the producers were so great. Scott Schneider, Pritesh Shah. They have been they believed in this whole process, and so I mean, everyone's been great. The whole cast is great. The crew is great. I have honestly zero complaints on anybody.
Were there any hurdles that you and the team had to overcome?
Oh, of course. As an indie movie, or any movie rather, Murphy's Law is the only law that seems to exist when you're shooting. Anything that can happen will happen. You have film permits? Great. Well, there's going to be an issue with one of your permits at one location. Someone's going to bust you for it. Like, there's stuff like that,
Oh, yeah.
Did you need to shoot in this one parking space that happens to be clear? Oh, well, someone's parked there, even though you have it permitted.
Oh my God.
We scouted. This is a great story. So we scouted June's house weeks prior to shooting, and we loved the location. It was a little noisy because it was right by the freeway. But we were like, we can live with this. We talked to the sound guy. We can live with this. When we get there for day one of shooting, a construction company is demoing a building across the street. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me! Like
oh my gosh.
We surveyed the neighborhood. We thought there'd be no potential issues. So I walked over and was like, hey guys, sorry to bother you. I'm doing this indie movie. We're shooting here for 6 days. My first movie. We're spending a lot of money. Was wondering, can I buy you guys lunch to like disappear for a little bit, or whatever? Like, what can I do? They're like, let me make a phone call. And then he goes, I'll do you one better. You buy us all pizza right now, we'll go away for 6 days. I just got to order the pizza right now. I bought some pizza. But they're union employees and they're paid salary. They're paid by the hour or whatever.
Yeah,
so
true.
They're getting paid. It didn't matter to them, For someone, I'm sure in the company was mad. But what's weird is that June's house and the whole strip in the block is demoed. It's gone because they're putting these apartment complexes there.
Oh my gosh.
And but it's weird. Like this little indie filmmaker got a construction crew to shut down for 6 days. I couldn't believe it.
I love that.
I thought our movie was going to tank. I was like, no, we're not going to be able to shoot this because it's too noisy.
Well, what I love about it too is it was like just pizza. Like it wasn't like ongoing pizza. It was just like this one time, get us pizza, and you bought us for a week.
Cool about it, yeah. It's weird because you're expecting a no. Like they're not gonna, they don't know me. Why are they gonna do me a favor? But what I've realized, if you talk to people in a good manner, they'll consider things, and I'm really grateful. I mean, I wish I remember their names. I wanted to send them a copy of the movie, or I didn't have their info, but definitely grateful that they postponed that.
Now, again, as we kind of talked about having Steve Olson on the show, something that I had told him in our interview was that this film truly has the potential to take off like a bullet. I think this is largely in part due to the relatable and, as we had touched on, heartfelt story that you've put together here with the other writers. Was it always your intention to craft a comedy that not only had laughs, but, heart? Like, was that, I know you'd mentioned that kind of after you'd started, that was something, but was that like your intention from the get-go? Is like, let's be different, let's make the audience feel as well as laugh.
No, that wasn't the intention. I think Wyatt and I wanted a script that was funny because, we both have, experience writing comedy. And so, no, that wasn't the intention, but, one of my, Jordan Hodges, who was our third writer that came in to bring the heart, to the film. He asked me, what do you want from this movie? I said, I want everything. I said, I want to make the money back. I want to jump into the next thing. I want to play at every film festival. I want to go to South by Southwest. He goes, well, you can't have that all. Like, what do you want? I said, I just want a film that people can watch, laugh, and just maybe it relates to them. He goes, well, you need some heart in the movie. Like if you want to play some festivals, you need a little bit of drama. And so, although it wasn't originally my intention to do that, again, I'm glad we did because it's so cool to be able to make someone laugh for 35 minutes, on and off, and then cry for a good 30 to 60 seconds or whatever, So it's cool how fast you can make a switch in a film and then, then switch back again, to end on a happy note. But yeah, no, not originally the intention, but, again, I wouldn't call it a happy accident, but yeah, I guess maybe it was a little bit of a happy accident.
Well, a huge thank you to Michael A. MacRae for joining me on the show today. Again, you can catch his latest film, Fishbowl California, now on Amazon, iTunes, and other video on-demand services. Listeners, seriously do yourselves a favor. Watch this film. You really won't regret it. Like, if you're having a downer day, this film will pick you right up, and it's a lot of laughs. There's a really great cast. You need to check out this film. Seriously, Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Zach, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Well, that's the end of episode 20 of the Film Revered podcast. Be sure to show your support for the FR podcast by leaving a review on iTunes, Google Play Music, or wherever you happen to listen to the show. Another great way to show your support is by getting a free audiobook and 30-day free trial from Audible by going to audibletrial.com/FRpodcast. Lastly, my guest for next week will be Mary Mauser, who recently starred as Samantha LaRusso in the hit YouTube Red series Cobra Kai. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of the Film Revered podcast. Have a great week.